Countdown. Hello, welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I am your host, Willie Bragg. Now, with regard to the Build Back Better, that looks like it's going to be down to crapper, and you have to understand something here. Joe Manchin basically exercised his leverage because there was a narrow majority for the Democrats. 50-50 Senate, 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. Tiebreaker, Kamala Harris, Vice President. So, Joe Manchin, guess what he did? And I want the leftists, my fellow leftists who, to hear this. Because guess what he did? He used his leverage to basically piss away, weaken, made, Build Back Better a piece of shit legislation from its initial glorious features that it has, to the point where I don't want Build Back Better to pass because it's now a piece of shit thanks to Joe Manchin, who needs to just fucking leave the Democratic Party and become a Republican. I actually believe that if Joe Manchin leads the Democrats and become a Republican, and it tips it in the 51-49 scenario, I think that the Democrats will probably get more shit done than they would with an asshole like Joe Manchin, who's a piece of shit. In the words of Donald Trump, with regard to Israel's worst prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, my sentiments are the same toward Joe Manchin. Fuck him. So, he used force to vote. He used force to vote in his own way to destroy Build Back Better. Now, a year ago, Jimmy Dore a year ago proposed the idea. And what I love about this video clip here, I won't keep it too long, but it's relevant. Let me do this here real fast. For those in my audience here, you're probably familiar with this program. So what I'm going to do is, let me put it on a good speed here, so I have some words to share momentarily. Ba-dum-bum. Here we go.
So I saw a video, and I've been being should I even give him credit for it? Because there's a lot of things about this guy that I don't care for. Mm-hmm. But because of the spirit in which it was presented, and because actually, I really don't care at the end of the day about whether someone's a jerk or not a jerk. I have a political agenda, and it was a pretty good idea. And so Jimmy Dore had a suggestion that we can all participate in, and I have not been able to come up with a reason why we shouldn't participate in this. People shouldn't either, because I think it's a pretty good one. I think there is a downside and a danger to it. Sometimes you can overplay your hand on some level, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But broadly speaking, and it is this. As you know, Nancy Pelosi has been basically nominated to be the Speaker of the House. The Democratic caucus has more or less said, we're down with that. Then what happens is it goes to a full vote in the House. Democrats have a 15-seat majority, I think, as of now. I don't know if there's any races that are extant. So there's a 15-seat or I should say a 14 seat, I think, majority.
Might be less, but I'm not sure.
Let's just say for the sake of argument that it's about 14 seats.
Okay.
Because, these things are fluid. I think there's still one or two, extant. But nevertheless, the point being that what can progressives get from Pelosi in exchange for their votes? There's also, there could be a couple of moderates who are not voting for Pelosi, right? I think, was it from Michigan? I can't remember her name now, but
the CIA woman.
Right, exactly. Slotkin. She claimed that she wasn't going to support Pelosi, but who knows? Maybe she meant for the leader as opposed to for Speaker of the House. But the idea is to get the some progressives, all you need is about 15, to say, we want a vote on Medicare for all in the House. Now, even if the Medicare for all was to pass in the House, it doesn't mean anything in terms of it actually getting into effect. Now, but there is value in getting the caucus on the record, both from, like, if the Democratic caucus votes for it, it sets a marker for when they control both houses.
And there have been votes in the past, right? On Medicare for all in the House, and you've gotten people on the record. Like, prime example for me when I was debating these Tulsi Gabbard supporters was that she wasn't voting for Medicare for all, and then she signed on to it later on. But I agree. I mean, I think that's a good way to go about things.
And we could push House members to leverage their vote. Now,
okay. Now, why on earth did I play that December 1st, 2020 clip from the Majority Report with Sam Seder? It's because Sam Seder decided to not let his prejudice against Jimmy Dore cloud his judgment initially. And I commend him December 1st, 2020 on that on his admission that this is a damn good idea. And it could have been a good idea if it would have been exercised by the correct people doing this. And the thing about it is, he later on decided it was a bad idea. Same thing with Cenk Uygur and Candace Karian and some of the other shit libs like Bosch and all these folks. It's because they're like, well, Jimmy Dore proposed this idea. It's a terrible idea after all. I mean, it wasn't a terrible idea. It wasn't given a chance because they're like, what if we forced to vote and not get Medicare for all? Guess what? We didn't use Medicare. We didn't use forced to vote. We didn't get Medicare for all. We're not even getting a fucking public option. I mean, Build Back Better was supposed to go and lower Medicare, I believe, down to the age of 60. We're not even going to get that. There's not going to be any prescription drug reforms or anything like that where the government negotiate for lower drug prices because cackling Karen down in Arizona, Kirsten Sinema, is in bed sucking the cock of the pharmaceutical industry. A damn fucking prostitute that she is, with the $750,000, I believe it was, that pharmaceuticals gave to her. Yeah, the Dead Kennedys said in the song, Moral Majority, ram it up your cunt, Anita. That's what I got to say about Kirsten Sinema. Take that $750,000 and ram it up the cunt, you whore. And take that EpiPen from your daughter, Joe Manchin, and shove it up your ass. The thing about it is that we're not going to get Medicare for all. We're not. And we could have. And even if we would have been a big failure in actually doing it, the very notion of making that asshole Nancy Pelosi sweat, that would have been worth it. I mean, I'm all for punishing these corporate Democrats who sits there and fuck us over every time. since the fucking 1990s. It happened to a degree before. But since Bill Clinton entered the picture, I mean, it's always the corporate Democrats getting their way. I mean, they got a little bit scared of Bernie Sanders in 2016. They fucked them over. And they fucked them over again in 2020. I saw what the Democratic Party convention last year did to the left. I mean, they basically, they basically went out of their way with never Trumper Republicans, allowing them to, to pontificate on the stage, whereas they gave Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez what was like just a minute. I mean, even though I don't like Tulsi Gabbard anymore, they wouldn't even let her speak. The Young Turks, who I don't respect anymore, but even last year, they were denied press passes to the Democratic Convention. They don't want any troublemakers. And the Democratic Party thinks more highly of Meghan McCain than they do Susan Sarandon. Not that I want to talk about entertainment or what have you, but that's where we're at right now. And the squad had an opportunity. I mean, an opportunity. We wouldn't have gotten Medicare for all. I understand that. Even in the middle of a pandemic, we would not have gotten Medicare for all. But I think that we would have had a greater chance of getting Medicare for all by doing force a vote than just, sitting on your hands and saying pretty please to Nancy Pelosi and pretty please to Jim Clyburn and saying pretty please to Chuck Schumer and pretty please to President Joe Manchin and Vice President Kirsten Sinema. They're the ones really in charge, not Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, Dementia Joe and Kamala Harris. No. So, the thing about it is that they, we let this happen over and over. And we let Joe Manchin, we let that piece of crap of a human being, Joe Manchin, we let this motherfucker, this piece of shit of a human being, who's really, he's basically a Mitch McConnell Democrat. That's what he is. Mitch McConnell really controls the show with this asshole. And, whether you're a corporate Democrat or whether you're a real leftist in the Democratic Party, if one must preserve the Democratic Party, you need to declare Joe Manchin as enemy number one. You need to look at him and be like, he's just as much a piece of shit as Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, I'm not saying he's as right wing as Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he is as toxic in his own way. And so, you have to declare him enemy number one within your ranks. But no, the Democrats rather look at Bernie Sanders. Yep, the Democrats, they rather go and what do they rather do? They rather sit there and vilify this man. They rather vilify Bernie Sanders than Joe Manchin. And you know what? When the Democrats lose the House and the Senate in 2022, it's inevitable. It's inevitable because of the gerrymandering that went on and the way that the Senate is structured with the 50-50, and Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema are actually sitting there obstructing. The thing about it is, Democrats are going to be fucked in the year 2022 without any lubrication. I mean, that's what's going to happen with the Democrats. They are in huge trouble. I mean, I'm not really feeling sorry for them because they refuse to do what needs to be done. And the thing about it is that they won't learn their lessons. They're just going to be like, they're just going to double down, and they're going to wag their finger at the left and tell them, they'll tell them you're to blame for the Democrats losing, and you're going to bring us another 4 years or maybe even 8 years of Donald Trump. That's what they're going to say. And the thing about it is, just look in the past, see what happens when corporate Democrats are in charge. Bill Clinton became president in 1992. He did not become president because of the third way bullshit that he proposed. Ross Perot took enough votes away from Republicans so Bill Clinton could win by a plurality. If it would have been just Bill Clinton and George Herbert Walker Bush, Bill Clinton still would have lost by the same margin as someone like Michael Dukakis in 1988, who was a much better candidate than Bill Clinton. I'm not saying Michael Dukakis is the panacea for problems, but, Michael Dukakis was a much better man than Bill Clinton. Well, you have to look at it this way. That the force to vote really was correct, and a lot of people on the left who because they have an irrational hatred of Jimmy Dore. And I don't agree with Jimmy Dore on every issue. I'm not particularly a fan of his temperament at times. He has an asshole demeanor, and he does seem kind of mean spirited at times. But having all that said, he's largely correct. Yeah. I do think that I wouldn't call it a grift, but he's found it profitable to masquerade himself as a leftist, and I think he is leftist, but do it in a way where you're always criticizing the Democrats and for some reason putting kid gloves on modern Republicans. Oh, he'll still beat up on George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. That doesn't change. And he'll beat up on the right-wing trajectory of the Republican parties from 10 and 15 and 20 years ago. But I don't think he's actually trying to suck up to the modern Republican Party, but I do think that his strategy of trying to appeal to them may not work in his favor. But I do not think he's a secret right-winger and all of that. I do wish that in his program that he could criticize Republicans a tad bit more, because really, honestly, they deserve more criticism at the end of the day than the Democrats even. Because the Republican Party is the party of the it's the party of the religious right, meaning the party of intolerance. It's the party of neocon wars at the end of the day. It's the party of corporate America. Yeah, both Democrats and Republicans are corporatists. But you know what? Unions get weaker when Republicans are around. They don't get necessarily stronger when Democrats are around, but they get significantly weaker when Republicans get their hands on trying to gut out unions, which means it's an attack on the middle class. And when I hear people talk about how Republicans are really for the worker, that's bunk. Prove to me that Republicans are for the worker by being pro-union, or at the very minimum, being for a public option. So, but the thing about it is that if you're not familiar with Heartland's Media, I highly recommend it. Is in Chicago. Some young people run that place. And Kit Cabela is the he's one that's head of he's the head of the what you call it, the Heartland's Media. So hold on tight here a second, and we will get that video there momentarily. Let's see, right there. Yep. Let's see. All right. Let's see here. And let me start here. I'm going to put it on speed, and what Kit Cabela has to say, in my opinion, is fairly relevant. And I will respond to the chat line in just a moment. Here we go.
Okay, we are live. Welcome everyone to this late evening live stream. I think it's only fair that we have to do a quick follow-up to a story that we covered on today's show earlier today. I want to thank all of you for joining me. Again, Heartlands Media is live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. Be sure to check out our two links of Odyssey and Rockfin in the description box below, and please consider being a Patreon supporter as well, because now more than ever, we need independent media to speak truth to power and hold those in office, be it at the federal level or at the state level, accountable for their actions. And the thing is, this is sort of a big I told you so. Because at the end of the day, look, let's face it, Jimmy Dore and numerous other progressives at the beginning of the Biden-Harris administration, and even throughout the 2020 primary and general election cycle, especially for the Democratic primary, a lot of independent, smaller channels, activists, organizers that were calling out the hypocrisy of the Democratic establishment were correct. We're correct on just how much of a failure a lot of our elected officials truly are. And it's difficult to really talk about this because, look, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of us in this viewing audience, and even a few other journalists as well, that kind of held out maybe some kind of hope that the progressive movement, that the independents would raise a ruckus. I think there was a lot of hope on AOC and all these other progressive lawmakers, and a lot of hope on Senator Bernie Sanders too. But the thing is, actions and deeds speak louder than words or just statements. And we have to remember, especially during 2020, there was a lot of Trump derangement syndrome going on. And I get it. Look, Donald Trump, I didn't want to see him get reelected. But the thing is, everyone was losing the bigger picture. We got Donald Trump because of 8 years of neoliberalism under the Obama administration. This is a real truth. This is a fact. Trump came to power after Barack Obama. And the thing is, all this could have been avoided if the Democrats actually enacted election integrity. But see, that was ignored, especially by outlets like TYT, especially the first time it happened in 2016, where there was clear evidence that the Democratic establishment and Clinton campaign were working together to deny Bernie Sanders a nomination. And history repeated itself again, and Bernie, like he did in 2016, allowed it to happen to him and his supporters all over again. But even then, the Young Turks and other larger independent media networks were carrying water for the Democratic establishment and saying that the progressive movement was going to push Biden and Harris to the left. That's what was going to happen. That's what was promised. And when it came out to, or especially came down to time to criticize the Democrats, or even House progressives like AOC, Pramila Jayapal, Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, Senator Bernie Sanders, and so many others, there were gatekeepers. People stopping. Because wait, we have to give them time. We have to give Biden and Harris time. They're going to do it. Don't criticize them. That's being violent. And we have to remember, too, that the Democratic establishment was making it very clear to the entire progressive movement that they were never going to follow through with any of the campaign promises. Yes, these statements were made by Biden and Harris, and of course, Bernie Sanders, being a good sheepdog, was, of course, telling everyone that's going to be okay, that his good friend Joe was going to follow through, and that Joe Biden knew how to be pragmatic. That's what corporate Democrats were saying, and everyone was celebrating when Trump was defeated. Everyone was cheering, but Trump's going to run again in 2024. Surprise, surprise. And throughout the entire first year of the Biden-Harris administration, we've been seeing nothing but disappointment. Biden and Harris are still continuing on Trump's policies south of the border. Nothing fundamentally changed. The kids are still in cages. We're still doing regime change wars. No UBI, no Federal Jobs Guarantee Act. Nothing. But yet, there's still this wall of defense, especially by TYT, towards AOC and all the other House progressives, especially early on. No, you can't be violent. You can't be criticized. They know what they're doing. Don't criticize them. But only now are they speaking out and being surprised, especially with the lack of leadership from Pramila Jayapal. Let's look at what TYT ignored, especially when there was a huge opportunity to really bring in change. Maybe things wouldn't change that much, but I mean, my goodness, what a united progressive coalition would look like. Let's talk about force to vote. There were 15 congressmen and women who were on the force to vote petition, AOC being one of them, and so many others, including Pramila Jayapal and a few others, who ran on Medicare for All. But, oh, wait, no, they didn't. They ignored the town hall that had 100,000 plus viewers join in. That was hosted by Jimmy Dore, Brianna Joy Gray, Justin Jackson, Dr. Cornel West, and so many other heroic individuals that were telling their stories about why we need Medicare for All. And through executive order, I want to remind all of you that Joe Biden can make Medicare for All happen, get rid of student debt. Oh, and by the way, legalize cannabis. But he's choosing not to do it. And, of course, early on, Jake was all on board, but then all of a sudden, something happened, and he flip-flopped. And forced to vote, then faced a lot of antagonism. The larger independent media networks were starting to smear and starting to basically attack anyone that was being critical of any person part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Then we go to the force to vote for 15. Sounds good on paper, but it was thumbs down by, of course, 8 Senate Democrats, Manchin and Sinema being 2 of them. And what did the House Progressives do, especially under leadership of Breland Jail Paul? Nothing. Now let's talk about the March for Medicare for All. Once again, being attacked and smeared because, activists and organizers and independent journalists that were critical of the squad and other progressive members were part of it. TYT went after them. And then same thing, too, was the 3-day General Strike Summit. Still smeared and ignored. And now we get to this article here from Mediaite, where Cenk Uygur goes off on Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, and Jail Paul on Build Back Better defeats. They're all failures. Well, no, duh. The entire Democratic Party are a bunch of failures, Cenk. But yet, you went to bat for them. Even after they smeared you and your campaign. You still carried water for this Democratic Party. Trump's going to run again. So guess what? I guess you get to talk more about Trump as much as you want. But the thing is, it's a failure of the House Progressives, Senate Progressives, and this entire Democratic establishment that's once again going to give us Trump again. Cenk Uygur spared no leader Monday night following the apparent failure of the Build Back Better bill. The Young Turks founder went hard after President Joe Biden, House Speaker Ice Cream Nancy Pelosi, Senate Majority Leader Chucky Boy Schumer, and Representative Pramila Jayapal for their failed strategy to pass the massive spending bill, a significant piece of legislation that West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin recently announced he would not be supporting. And let's be very clear. Pramila Jayapal went on the record saying that the Build Back Better was at $7 trillion. The House Progressives, who are supposed to raise a ruckus, let the Democratic establishment, and they let them do it, bring $7 trillion down to $1.75 trillion. But oh no, wait, it's violence to be critical of the House Progressives. You're being mean. You're not being pragmatic. You don't understand their long-term game. They never had a long-term game to begin with. AOC said Biden and Harris exceeded expectations, gave them an A+.
All right. Okay, that's there's more to it. But I think that Kabbalah kind of hit the nail on the head there. Let me get back to this. But what I want to say is that, is this, the whole thing about in the middle of COVID and everything, the Medicare for all situation. Right now we have supposed allies like TYT going after Biden, going after Jayapal, and all of that, going after Cortez, and everything for the longest time, carrying water for these folks, and doing that ended up they realized that nothing is getting done, and I know that the TYT's they're on borrowed times because of the water, the money that's been given to them, hush money, to not criticize too much the corrupt direction of the Democratic Party. They kind of let them go and criticize people like Manchin and Sinema, tread very lightly with Biden maybe and all that, but when they're being bought and bribed, when they're not even going too aggressive after our allies in Congress, like the squad, are supposed to fight for our interests. But, when you got, as I said, with the force to vote, they went and criticized force to vote initially, and you can't even go and criticize, support things like March for Medicare for All, as if that's a Tea Party event. But as it turned out, being loud is going to be the only way you're going to get things done. Being loud and obnoxious. And, I'm ready for 100% third-party action, whether it's done through the Green Party or done through the People's Party or done through some kind of Labor Party formation. If I had it my way and I could wave a magic wand, we will have the Labor Party USA with AFL-CIO and all the organized labor going into this Labor Party USA and having all these socialist organizations kind of work as tiny little Fabian societies within this Labor Party USA. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that that Jimmy Dore, as I said, was correct. And as I said, I got my issues with Jimmy Dore. I do, but force to vote was not one of them. And anyway, I just wanted to share that with you all. I have a chat line here, and I will like to talk to everybody. Theodore Blankenship, how are you? I'm doing good. Old School Willie, yeah, thank you. Hot Retarded Checks. Harlan's media is anti-Semitic. Oh my! Well, my favorite communists. And I ask how they're anti-Semitic. They hate Israel. Well, I don't think that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic. I don't think that at all. Now, I think that criticizing Israel because they're Jewish in Israel would be anti-Semitic, but criticizing Israel for people like Benjamin Netanyahu and what he did over the years, that's not anti-Semitic. As I said, I had to almost praise Trump for telling Benjamin Netanyahu to fuck off. I thought that was absolutely golden. I'm like, wow. I mean, he ain't wrong on that one, although for different reasons he told Benjamin Netanyahu to fuck off. And there are some evangelical Christians in going into a mental meltdown. Who do I support? Do I support Benjamin Netanyahu or do I support Donald Trump? Hee-haw! So anyway, that's just my observations about things. But anyway, that's what I got to say at the moment. And I hope one day that force of vote will be utilized or whatever radical means that we can to get that health care that other countries they either take for granted or what have you. One more thing. When they attack you in the streets in LA for it is I agree, hot retarded text. I think attacking somebody, anybody, attacking somebody in LA, that was an anti-Semitic event. I do agree with you there, and anybody who's anti-Semitic can indeed fuck off. I mean, honestly. But as far as criticizing, and I used to be a strong supporter of Israel years and years ago, and I started to see that a government that actively remains racist toward the Palestinian people. I just could not lie to myself anymore in that regard, and I recognize that there are things about Israel I recognize and respect in a great way. The Jewish Social Democrats and the Jewish communists that founded the country back created the country in the first place through the kibbutz movement and all that. But they became a very powerful country when actual bad people shoot rockets and kill one or two people in the Israeli side, or just damage some property, and then Israel fires back. 40, for Israelis that die, they'll kill 40 Palestinians. I'm thinking about that, and that's kind of very one-sided and everything. So I don't want anybody shooting missiles at each other. I don't want anybody on either side hurting each other. I want both sides to live at peace. But have to go and call everybody out when they do wrong. And so, I don't officially support any country in the Middle East because I think every country in the Middle East is fucked up. Whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Iran, whether it's Syria, whether it's Israel, whether it's Egypt. I mean, there's not a country in that region where there are sensible people governing. So that's my approach, and I think that the United States is best to just move on the hell out of the Middle East. So, it's the last 20 years especially, it's been kind of rough. So, anyway, if you all like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. What else was I going to say? Also, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you're kept up to date with hard-hitting commentaries by yours truly. Hot retarded chicks, if you stick around, I'm going to type something that I'm going to ask you a question in just a moment. Anyway. Until then, for everybody else, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and all certainly all the best. And until next time, class struggle all the way, and free Julian Assange. Music. I am so sorry. Gosh. Okay, sorry about that. I am having a glitch. Let me do that again. Sorry, folks. Okay.